All right, welcome. Thanks for joining. We're excited you're here. We're going to let everyone roll in and get started in just a minute. Thanks for joining our mock admissions webinar. We're really excited that you're here. While you are waiting, we have a QR code on the screen. If you do want to scan that with a phone, I'll link the actual URL so you can click on that in the chat in a moment. It's a little survey you want to take before. Welcome. We're excited you're all here. I'm going to put in the chat the free survey that we have. It's linked in the QR code, or if you want to click on this little link right here and fill this out before we get started in just a minute. This would give us some good feedback, see what you all know before we get started, and hopefully you all learn some stuff. So we'll get started in maybe 1 minute. And Ms. Jasso, do you want to make an announcement about the translation?
Yes. Buenas noches. Si hay algunas familias aquí esta noche que necesitan interpretación en español, por favor de oprimir el mundo que está abajo de aquí del Zoom y dice interpretación con un mundo. So, es un icono de un mundo. Entonces, si tenemos familias aquí esta noche que necesitan interpretación en español, por favor de oprimir el mundo y los llevará a una Zoom con interpretación en español. Gracias.
Awesome, thank you. So if anyone just joined, we have a QR code on the screen. If you want to scan it with your phone, or in the chat, you can see a link. We have a little survey that we'd love for you to participate, to see who's here, to see which school you're from, and then we'll get started in just a second. Sweet, I see lots of people filling that out. Awesome. All right, so we'll get started. Thanks again for joining us. We're so excited that you're all here for our mock admissions webinar. We really hope that with this webinar, you'll kind of get an inside glimpse into like the college admissions process. So we'll explain a little bit about, what the admissions looks like from the college perspective, and we'll talk about how you can review an application, and we'll get started right now. So we're super excited, and thanks again for joining us. All right, so just some basic housekeeping while we're going over this webinar. Your cameras and mics are off right now, but if you have questions or anything, you can put those in the chat or the Q&A so we can answer any questions. We'll have some polls throughout so you can interact and answer some questions that we're going to have too. And then this webinar will be sent out in the next day or so you can watch the recording as well as have access to the slides. And so anytime you see this little link right here, we put resources so that way you can go back and take a look at anything we've talked about and review at your leisure. Another really cool thing that our team does is we record all of our webinars and we post them to our YouTube channel. So you can watch this one again, or we have tons of others, pretty much ranging on every topic under college and career that you can think of. So if you ever want to take a look, there's tons of resources available for all grade levels. So super awesome. All right, so this is our college and career team. So we are part of CUSD. Our team we consist of college and career counselors. We also have the name Futureology. So if you've seen that through newsletters or other things that your school sends out, that is the college and career team in Capital Unified. We're really lucky because we have somebody on site at each high school within the district full time. So each school has a college and career center. So students and families can schedule appointments. They have workshops. Students can drop in and ask questions. So we're really here to support our students. All of us are certified school counselors. We've all had experience within different grade levels, high school, middle school, and so on. So we all have really unique experience we bring to the team. Another really cool feature of our team is we all have experience working within college admissions, whether it's a private school, UC, really to help, provide students with a different lens. So that way when we're helping our families, we can see what students are going what things go on before and after the application process, because we've all kind of worked in that field. And then one really awesome thing about our team is we are very data driven. So things like the survey we just had you fill out, or things we have with our students and our lessons, we have them fill out activities and worksheets. So that way we can use all of the data to help benefit our team and our students and provide the best services and resources possible. So our team loves data and really just to help make our team the best for your students. So I mentioned we do one-on-one appointments with families. We do tons of school-wide initiatives. So we have grade level workshops on campus. We do webinars like this one. We have evening events for things like financial aid. We also have resources available through our website and our YouTube channel. We also have a couple bilingual counselors, which is awesome. So if that is something that you're interested in, we also provide tons of activities within the classrooms on campus. So if your students ever need help, we're all in the Career Center on campus. It might be located in the library or in a classroom, but students are always welcome to stop by and say hi and ask questions. 9th grade all the way up to 12th grade. We love to see all the students. All right, so today we're going to talk about the admissions and the admissions process. So we'll talk about the admissions overview first, kind of what it looks like from an outside perspective. Then we're going to give you a sample university. So each university has a university profile, what they're looking for in students. So we'll talk about what that really means. We'll go over sample applicants. So you're going to see 3 sample applicants and see their transcripts, their information, their resume, all of the stuff that they would include in a college application. So that way you can see what it looks like, what a student would submit. And then at the end, we're going to ask you all to see how you would decide on their acceptance. Would you accept the student, waitlist, or deny based on the 3 candidates that we have provided for you today? And then lastly, we have some additional resources and upcoming events that we'll share with you. So that way we can keep supporting your students through the rest of the school year and even coming up for next year. All right, so the admissions process, like how does it work from a student's perspective? Before you start applying, it's really good to know, what is a student required to submit? What is a student going to be including on their application? How is the student's application going to be looked at from the college perspective? So what is the student really turning in? All right, so when colleges look at a student's application, they do look at a ton of different factors. And so how do you know what's important, what's maybe not as important? It does change per campus, but this is a good overview of what the colleges really look for when they are reviewing your student's application. So this is data from the National Association of College Admissions Counseling. So colleges were surveyed on what they thought was the most important part of the application. So when students submit all their info, what do colleges really look for? What do they really value? So you can see the first category, grades. So 76% found that is very important. So out of all the colleges surveyed, most found that it's very, very important. Not just necessarily straight A's, but did the student take college prep courses? Did they take courses that were challenging? Did they earn grades that improved from a B to an A and so on? Let's see, the next category is rigor. So what selection of courses did your students select from 9th grade all the way to senior year? Did they take classes that challenged themselves? Did they take a 4th year of math when they didn't need to, or a 4th year of science, or an AP class in a subject that they're interested in? So did they show that they're challenging themselves? Also, students can take college level coursework, and that's included in their college application. So maybe your student took a Saddleback course or an OCC course. That would be part of that course rigor. And 63% or so of colleges thought that it was pretty important what the course selection, so the rigor of the classes. Did the student really challenge themselves? Are they putting themselves out there and studying things that they're interested in and trying things that maybe are out of their comfort zone a little bit? Maybe you are taking college prep classes and you get all A's, but have you ever considered taking an AP class? Maybe it's hard, but is that going to be a good challenge? The next category that they look at is like your personal character, your personal traits. So maybe through your essay, how do they view you as a person? Your college essays, you can talk about you as a person, how you interact with your family, your friends, and things like that. They can kind of get a sense of who you are as a person beyond just your transcripts or your grades. Another area would be your letter of recommendation. So when your counselor submits that to the colleges, they can talk about you as a student academically, but they can also talk about you as a person within your class, your the way you interact with other students, the way you interact on your campus, how much of a leader are you, and things like that, that aren't necessarily seen through grades. They also can see your extracurriculars, how involved you are, do you make an impact on your campus, like what do you do to put yourself out there? And then the last category would be essays. So if the colleges do utilize essays, just to get to know you a little bit more, get to know your style of writing, get to know you as a person beyond your academics, beyond your resume. So it helps kind of put everything into context so it can see who you are overall. And so this is a really cool piece of data because this is coming directly from the colleges and showing you what they kind of value. Again, each college might value things a little differently, but this was a survey done for many, many colleges. So this is a conversation we can also have individually if you have more specific questions with your students, but this is a really nice overview to kind of get a sense of what do they actually look for when they read your application. All right. So when students are ready to apply, say it's senior year and you're starting to actually apply, what do the applications look like? What do the review processes look like? Because there are so many schools in California and the United States and so on, and they kind of look at different things. So the first type of review process that we have in the college world is called holistic or comprehensive. So this is where students are going to show kind of a little bit of everything about themselves. So your personal information, your demographic information, right? They'll look at your grades, your GPA, your course selection, so your transcript information, maybe test scores if the colleges require it. And then they also use letters of recommendation, essays. This is where they can see who you are, your sense of more of your personality, how you interact with others, and so on campus. Demonstrated interest, maybe you've gone to a college fair at that campus, maybe you've communicated with the college representative when they had a visit on your high school campus. Your extracurriculars, are you involved in activities? You have a part-time job, you have a club, you're a leader, and then personal situation. So maybe you have something unique or challenging you've had to go through. So they look at all of those different factors when they offer you admissions. So the schools that use this type would be the UC system or the University of California here in California, many private schools and some out-of-state schools. So this is a pretty wide range of schools that use this type of review. And then the second would be academic. So this is just more of the like quantifiable things, numbers, test scores, things like that. So GPA, test scores, what courses you've taken, 9th through 12th grade, your course rigor, did you take AP classes to challenge yourself or take a 4th year of a subject when you didn't need to? And then the schools that look at this type of system would be the Cal States or the CSU system here in California, and then some out-of-state schools. So if you are getting ready to apply and you're not sure, these are conversations we'd love to have with you. So that way we can make sure you feel very prepared when you start applying as a senior year. But it's this is just a little snapshot of what they look for. All right, I'm going to pass it on over to Ms. Josso. Now we're going to switch to the university side.
Okay. So in order for us to be admissions reviewers, right, for Lake Washington, we need to get to know them. So let's get right into it. So we're going to look at our basic university information, right? So we know that we're a small school. It's we only have 4,000 undergraduates. We are 89% of our students live on campus for all 4 years. We are a smaller campus, right? So we are going to have smaller student to professor ratio. So we're 11 to 1 in that. And we are a Division I lacrosse school, right? So for men's and women's divisions. And in all other sports, we're a Division III school. So we know that's our basic information on Lake Washington. And then we're going to look at our academic profiles. So this is a competitive school to get into, okay? They accept about 28% of students that apply there. So they also accept early action and regular decision. Their middle range GPA, right, is a 3.65 to a 3.98. And this is unweighted. So they are looking at, they are not counting for honors points or anything like that. So this is just their unweighted GPA needs to be pretty high, almost a 4.0, right? They are test blind, so they're not looking at SAT scores for admissions. They are looking at a college essay. They want to know, like Ms. Ranjifa was talking about, that holistic review, right? They're going to look at not just grades. They're also going to look at the context of a student's life. So were they a caretaker for their family? You know, what was their situation throughout high school? And we're going to keep all of this in mind, as well as their transcript and their resume, activities, all of these extracurricular activities, as we prepare to look forward to these candidates. And lastly, financially, we're looking at they're a private university, so it's going to cost a little bit more to go there, right? So they do meet the full need of their students that attend. And this doesn't necessarily mean that they meet their students' needs all through scholarships, right? Some of it will be, when they say they meet their need, it's provided by a mix of scholarships, grants, and loans, okay? There we go. And then also they will be needing to file their FAFSA for all of this so that they can see how much they will actually have to attend Lake Washington, okay? And that's 89% of their students meet their needs. So that's pretty good, okay? So now that we know a little bit more about Lake Washington University, let's talk about what goes into admitting a student, okay? So we're going to look at 3 different buckets, right? Not all schools focus on the same things, but Lake Washington University wants to understand their student, right? So they want to know what is their student background, right? What obstacles have they faced while they were in high school? What kind of things did they go through? They want to know, what are their teachers and counselors saying about them? You know, do they have strong recommendation letters? They're also going to be looking at that college essay. They also at Lake Washington happen to care about legacy, right? So did any of their family members go to this school? So we're looking at that first part. The second bucket here that they want to know about is the academics, right? So most schools are going to care about that GPA. They're going to care that your student has done well academically, right? So they're going to look at test scores if applicable. They're going to look at that course rigor. You know, are they taking those AP courses? Are they taking those IB courses throughout high school? And then when they also want to know what learning environment they came from, right? So they're going to look at the school profile. They are going to look at how the grade trends, right? So if your student started out, you know, in 9th grade with, you know, B's and C's, over time, did they improve and do they have straight A's now? You know, so that's the kind of thing that they're looking at. They're going to look at their love of learning, right? So how is your student demonstrating their love of a particular major or topic that they're interested in? And lastly, they're looking at their activities, right? This is where the student's resume comes into play. And we look at their resume, you know, what activities are they doing outside of school? They want to know how much time are those activities taking, right? How much does it take up their time? Does it align with a major of interest that they are going for and or a personal passion, right? So this will all basically be, they'll see this through what clubs they were involved in, any jobs that they held, sports that they were involved in, and also volunteering in their community, okay? So now that we know that, let's consider a few questions, right? So now that we know that's the evaluation process, here are some things that we want to consider, right, as we move forward. So how does the student compare to the profile of admitted students? This means, is the student in that GPA range? Remember, we talked about that 3.65 to 3.98 unweighted GPA. Is the student in that, do they fall in that, right? And does a student really want to go to Lake Washington University, right? And this is the reason that they care about this is because they may admit a certain number of students, but universities also want to see that these students are attending, right? So if your student has interest in their university, they're more likely to attend. They're looking at what are the students' strengths, right? What do they bring to the table? What has a student done in connection to their intended major? So again, we're looking at those clubs, we're looking at community service, we're looking at internships, college classes that they may have taken, and any kind of extracurricular activities that are related to their major. They're also going to look at, did the student take advantage of their educational opportunities within their high school, right? So what kind of classes were offered? Did they take advantage of those types of things? They're again going to look at those strong letters of recommendation. You know, what do their teachers and counselors have to say about them? And finally, they're going to also look at, does the student take challenging courses, right? So are they challenging themselves academically throughout high school? So now that you're all experts, we're going to go into a candidate review.
Thank you, Ms. Strasso. Ms. Rengifo, will you allow me to start my video? Okay, so we're going to move into the candidate profiles and start reviewing some of the candidates that have applied to this institution. I apologize, I'm not able to start my video, but if one of the hosts can allow that. Ms. Rengifo has also put in the chat our first candidate's application. So if you want to take a deeper dive into Maya's application, you have that link here. But for now, we're going to kind of go through and see a summary of her profile and of the things that she included in her application. And we can go ahead and start with her senior year courses. So we see here that she has continued her rigor into her senior year. So she's taking a total of 4 AP courses in her 12th grade. And she also is taking calculus and world religions. So she's got a very full schedule, all academic classes. And when we take a look at her profile, Maya comes from La Jolla, and she is not first generation. So both parents in the home have graduated from a 4-year university. Maya's also coming with strong recommendations from both her counselor and her teacher. And then in her essay, she talks about her experience and her heritage as a Native American and African American student. In the 10th grade, she experienced some bullying because of this heritage. And so she kind of talks about that in her personal statement and how that really affected her, and how she was able to really overcome that challenge. She also shares in that personal statement that that those who bullied her were actually expelled from the school, and the cyberbullying events were also carefully taken care of in collaboration with the administrators and with her family, etc. So she's coming with that kind of background. As far as contact with the college, she has visited them at the college fair, and she also talks about this in her YLWU essay, and she kind of really connected with the rep at the college fair. And she's also had another point of contact with the school where she she was at their preview program in San Diego. So she has demonstrated a level of interest to say that I am interested in attending this school. Maya's also bilingual. She hopes to major in business, and her career interest is a corporate attorney. When we take a look at her transcript, you can see her transcript on page 4 if you've opened up to the document. She has a weighted GPA of 3.35. And just remember that the school is going to be recalculating that GPA according to their calculation into an unweighted. She's taken a total of 8 honors and AP courses throughout the course of her 9th through 12th grade. And she has demonstrated rigor in her schedule. So her counselor actually gave her a rating of that her academic achievement falls within the top 10% of her class. So in the fall of her 10th grade, she kind of hit her low point in terms of her grades, and we see that trend. But after that, and we have the history, and we have the we know why she kind of hit that low, which also affected her academics. But after that, we after her bulliers are expelled, we see an improving trend in her grades. In terms of her activities, moving into her activities, she also was a part of Girls Who Code and participated in Stanford's summer law program, and has a variety of different activities, such as participating in a race for a cure, the Susan Komen Walk. She also holds a part-time job as a hostess. She's done a couple of internships, and is also part of the Hawaiian Cultural Awareness Club and the BSU. So she has demonstrated leadership there. In senior year, she is vice president of BSU, and then president of the Hawaiian Cultural Awareness Club in her senior year. So with that being said, that's a summary of Maya's application. If you're able to, are there any areas that stand out to you? So what are some things that stand out about Maya's application? And you can also, if there are any areas of concern, you can also mention that. And I do see some questions related to Maya's application. So I'm going to say, I'll just clarify that Maya talked about her heritage, her cultural heritage, and that is actually okay to do for a student's application. The colleges will welcome students talking about their experience and their identity in whatever way, shape, or form. So that is actually that's encouraged on the applications if that is something that's compelling as a part of this story. And for this student in particular, it is because she experienced bullying as a result of that. Is it okay to discuss or write about bullying or cyberbullying and about sexuality? So again, if it's something that is a personal experience or a challenge that the student has gone through, and this something like a bullying incident that really affected not only her emotional health, but also it affected her academic achievement. And that's kind of what we want to highlight here, is that it affected her in all ways, actually affecting her schoolwork as well. Okay, and then as far as GPA, again, so a lot of colleges will actually recalculate a student's GPA according to if they're going to be doing their own calculation, which LWU, our sample college, said that they will do. So for now, we just have this the GPA off of her transcript, but schools may recalculate that. All right, I think the chat is disabled, so we're just gonna move on. But those are some things that stand out about Maya. Okay, and then moving on, Ms. Rengifo is going to be sharing our second applicant. So our second applicant is Jonah Tyler Morris. Okay, and Jonah, this is a list of his senior year classes. So he is also taking a very full schedule. He has 3 AP classes. His senior year, you can see that he also has Model UN, which I will highlight in a bit that he's actually continued that all 4 years. So that's definitely something that he's passionate about. When we look into his profile, we see that he comes from San Francisco, and his dad actually graduated from the same university he's applying to. So, so he will be a legacy student who is applying. And JT has actually had several points of contact with the school. So he visited LWU at the college fair. He's also participated in their preview program, did a campus tour, went to the high school visit that the school had, went to a college fair. He actually also did a virtual interview with them and then also emailed them. So there are several points of contact to really demonstrate that he's very interested in the school. He intends to major in public policy and Latin American studies. And his second choice major is also actually Spanish, but he wants to pursue a career in policy research. Okay, academic for JT, if you go to his transcript on page 4, if you're opening up the doc, he has a 3.6 weighted GPA, and JT has taken a total of 7 honors and AP courses. So he has also challenged himself throughout the course of the 4 years. He does demonstrate rigor, and his counselor has rated his academic achievement as very good. So he's not falling in the top 10% of his class like Maya did, but she has said that his academics are still very good in comparison to his peers. His teacher recommendation also highlights this improvement trend that JT has shown throughout the 4 years. So that is something to consider. And like I mentioned earlier, he has participated in Model UN all 4 years. So this is something that he's very interested in. It lines up very well with his intended major of study. So we can kind of see that congruence over there. And he's also taking AP Government and Politics his senior year. So that is also an added factor that really supports his intended major of choice. Okay, moving on to his activities. So JT has participated, like you can see, in a lot of activities. He's interned with the state senator. He's also in his internship, he's also done some research on solar energy. He has done community service with the Bay Area Youth Service League. He is also president of the Spanish Club, VP of the Jewish Awareness Club, and a part of the Heartland Alliance International, and also in the ABC Anti-Bullying Club, where he was VP and now president. He's also earned some awards. So he's taken the National Spanish exam and received a distinction there. And he's also received a distinction of being an outstanding delegate his junior year at the National Model United Nations. Okay, so what stands out to you about JT? I know that there are several things in his application that should stand out, but you know, we discussed when we compare this to what Ms. Jasso shared of, you know, how colleges consider applications. What are some of the things that stand out to you? I would say those, you know, areas of interest that he's demonstrated. His dad is a legacy student, and this his dad is an alum, so he will be a legacy student. This school considers that. And also in his YLWU essay, he has also very much been straightforward in that he's grown up hearing stories about LWU and really wants to wants to attend this school. Okay. All right, and then let's move on to our last applicant of the night. So Ms. Rengifo is going to be sharing our last applicant's application in the chat. His name is Zach. So let's go ahead and start with Zach. So Zach, we can see his senior year courses. He's also very academic, he's taking 5 classes his senior year. 2 of them are AP courses. 1 of them is an honors course. Zach is coming from Newport Beach, and his parents are divorced, and mom is a college graduate. So he is also not a first-generation student. Zach also has very high recommendations from his teacher. And actually, his counselor rated him in the top 1%, that she sees him as really one of the top very few students that really stand out in her career for his personal character. Zach has also made contact with this university. He has participated in a virtual interview and also gone to their college fair visit. And his intended major of study is biomedical engineering. So Zach wants to be a biomedical engineer, and he's really interested in food science. So something that we learn about Zach in his essay and additional information section is that he has some atypical family circumstances. So he has a twin sister who is autistic, and so he is a caregiver to help care for her. And this was particularly an added challenge to Zach during COVID. So when there was no in-person instruction, I'm sorry, she is not autistic. She has Down syndrome. But he was her teacher, her caregiver, companion. He writes he was her protector, dance partner, and older brother by 18 minutes. So he has a special relationship with her, but he's also, he holds a position of responsibility with her, and also helping her with schoolwork, but and taking care of his own schoolwork at the same time. Also, he shares that he had other elderly family members move in with his family during COVID due to safety protocols in their residences. So he ends up giving up his room and sharing a room with his sister, which he shares that it disrupted his normal study routine and affected his grades. So moving on to his grades, we do see a little bit of that struggle. So there's some scattering and sprinkles of C's along with B's and A's. And so he ends up with a weighted 3.78 GPA. Zach has also challenged himself. So he has taken a total of 9 honors and AP courses throughout the course of his 4 years. And his counselor gives him a rating of top 5% in his senior class as far as his academic achievement. So although we see that, and he shares that he struggled a little bit, he's still done, very, very well. His teacher in his recommendation also highlights this improving trend that he saw, because his teacher had Zach over the course of different years and classes. Zach has also taken the highest levels of math and science offered in his school, which is very important. And in line with his intended major of study, he's taking AP Bio this year, and he's also received an honorable mention in a BioGenius challenge that he's done as a part of his extracurricular activities. The additional information section about him being a caregiver to his sister also kind of it helps to support and explain why he doesn't have many activities. So in comparison to the other 2 candidates, we see that, he hasn't done too much, but he still has, he's interned at a biolab department, and worked on various projects there, doing research and, in a PPE suit. He's also played sports. So he's been in varsity lacrosse all 4 years, and he won MVP in his junior year and shares that he'll likely be captain in his senior year. And then also in his activities, he does share that he cared for his twin sister. So any caregiving roles that students may take in their home, we want to highlight here that that is something that should be included, and that is considered extracurricular activities because it's taking time, from a student outside of school. So that is important to share. Okay, so that's it for Zach. Go ahead and think about what are some things that stand out for you, again, for Zach. I will share that his YLWU essay was also very phenomenal. He specifies that he chose to apply because of their exceptional biomedical engineering major, and because of this atmosphere where LWU faculty focus on teaching and mentoring students in addition to research. So he highlights how that is really in line with his goals. And he also had a conversation with the dean of the school. So, and also he says that lacrosse is offered and maybe a walk-on sport for him. So he's very specific about why he's applying to LWU. So go ahead and think about or share out some reasons that you would advocate for the student or any areas of concern that you might have. Okay, and if that is it, I'm going to now hand it over to Ms. Gatlin. Those are our 3 candidates that we are considering for tonight. And Ms. Gatlin is going to be sharing this comparison of the candidates in this next section.
Perfect, thank you. So yeah, you got kind of a quick overall of the different candidates, and Ms. Rengifo had added those into the chat. So, when you have time later, maybe sit down with your student, kind of go through those applications a little bit more thoroughly. These are some of the things that stood out to us, across the board, but there's so many other details, like Ms. Kang was saying, about their background, looking at context, all these different areas. So just to kind of go over and compare with the 3 different candidates, starting with Maya again, these were kind of the top things that stood out to us. Obviously we're going to list everyone's kind of GPA so you can get an idea there, but it's really looking too at the rigor, the honors AP courses that she took, knowing that she is a business major, ranked top 10% academically. And just to review, she did do 2 summer programs, Stanford Law and Girls Who Code. So that goes back to like her first choice major. It's very relatable with doing the business and the law and the summer programs. President of a couple clubs, and then she had the demonstrated interest as well. And then moving over to JP, 3.6 GPA. Again, his dad graduated from LWU, which is something that this particular university does look at and consider. Also high with the honors courses and AP courses, 7. Public policy major, very involved in showing demonstrated interest by visiting the campus. Again, his dad went there, but he also went there and did college fairs and showed his interest. Model Nations, 4 years, very impressive. Ranked top 10% academically by his counselor. And again, he also had something outside of his just regular schoolwork. Whoops. There we go. So he had an internship with a senator, right? He put himself out there, and then also president of a couple clubs as well. And again, this is all in context because, a student can say that they were in 20 different clubs, right? But that's not really what colleges are looking for. They're looking for students that are in clubs that they're passionate about, that they have an interest in, that means something to them. So you can kind of see that within these 3 candidates as well. And finally with Zach, again, 3.78, so strong GPA, biomed engineer major, very involved with sports, lacrosse, which LWU has, I believe, Division I for lacrosse. even though, you know, he had a lot of his time was taken, you know, for being at home, caring for his sister, he still was able to do some things outside of school, summer bioresearch internship for both 11th and 12th grade, which is really impressive. Even though, as mentioned, he did have some C's, you know, he really continued to challenge himself and take those high-level classes in math and science. So that didn't deter him from still challenging himself and taking those hard classes. The recommendation letter from his teacher was outstanding. That's one thing where, you know, you can have somebody write a letter of recommendation for you, but admissions representatives, they really know if that's kind of like a general letter, they write to everyone, or do they actually list really specific things that that student has done and has accomplished. So that's what this, if you have a chance to take a look at that letter of recommendation, it's very detailed. You can really tell that this particular, I think it's this counselor, you know, has to say about him. And again, ranked top 5% academically by his counselor as well. So just some questions to kind of ask yourself. You and your student can kind of maybe go over these in a little bit more detail, but you know, these are things to consider. You know, in some cases, are activities more important than the student's grades? It depends, right? It's going to depend on each, you know, candidate and what they're doing, the depth, the quality of the activities. Are they relatable to his major? How much time is that student spending with those activities? All of those are a factor. Can a strong essay make up for weaker grades? Well, we did see, and you can read those essays as well on your own time, but we did see that writing, you know, a strong essay has a big impact, especially when there's something significant that went awry or something happened, whether it's a medical reason. One student talked about COVID, and Zach also talked about, like I said, his sister and being home and having to be the caretaker, but also trying to, you know, get to his Zoom classes. So it really does help in context for the admissions reader, because if a student doesn't mention, you know, some of the background information, they're just left to assume, and they're just going to assume what they're going to assume. That we have no, you know, say over that. So as clear as a student can make, and is willing or open their, you know, willing to talk about any kind of those challenges, as long as, again, the student's comfortable about sharing anything personal. All right, does the letter of recommendation really matter? So as I mentioned, yes, it does, because the more detailed, you know, more examples of leadership, character, commitment, specifics about their accomplishments. Again, like Zach had, you know, something that he was recognized for science. The counselor talked about that and how she was the advisor for him doing that. So more detail, the better. Course selection, how does that affect the decision? Well, as we saw, course rigor is something highly looked at. They do want to make sure students are, you know, just continuing to challenge themselves. Now, this doesn't mean they necessarily have to be in all AP classes or all honors classes. But as you can see in the examples, like for going back to Zach, you know, he took APs and honors classes and the subjects that he was really interested in and passionate about. That's more of what they're looking for when it comes to course selection. Student expressing interest, we talked about that. And not all schools look at demonstrated interest. So it's up to the student to really do their research on the particular college or university. Okay, you know, do they track demonstrated interest? If I go to a college fair and I scan, you know, I scan and, you know, get on their list, their mailing list or whatnot. Some schools do keep track of that, but some colleges don't. How do academics activities relate to major section? So if at all possible, and it just all depends on the major as well, but even if it's, you know, job shadowing for a day, right? You know, different activities that relate to your major or extracurriculars, that could even be taking a course at like Saddleback, right? Or it could be taking a CCA course. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. Okay, so the fun part, we're gonna have you guys be the admissions and help us decide which applicant you would deny, waitlist, or accept. And again, I know it was kind of a quick overview of the candidates, but again, you can go on your own and do your own kind of research, but just for the purposes, we do want to see kind of as a fun poll there. So first, let's go ahead and let's have Ms. Rengifo is going to bring up the poll of who you would deny. So who you would not admit to LWU.
And Ms. Gatlin, they're all in the same poll, so they can vote for all three. Who
Oh,
they do
good.
waitlist and accept.
Perfect. Okay. So yes, that's all in one. So you can do, who would you deny is the first question. Which candidate would you waitlist? And the third one is who would you accept to LWU? Okay. Looking very interesting here. Okay, well, let's keep going. Yeah, got, it looks like for question one, so which candidate would you deny? So far, we have 65% of you would deny Maya. Looks like 24% JT and 11% Zach. Interesting. Okay, good. For waitlisting, looks like you guys waitlisted JT, 54%, then Maya, then Zach. And then for accepting, it looks like we have Zach at 67%, JT 25%, Maya at 9%. So very interesting. No, thank you for doing the poll. That helps us as well. And like I said, you may make a different decision when you go through each of the applications on your own time. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So we did want to kind of just go over, we mentioned a couple times showing your love of learning in your high school career, at your high school experience. So here's a couple things that we want to kind of go over. So electives, there's so many choices, you know, so many electives at each of the schools. All of those go towards credits for graduation. It shows, you know, areas that you're interested in exploring, taking different electives, you know, whether it's visual performing arts or adding an extra math or science class. And then I'll kind of mention a couple more here. So CCA courses. So CCA courses are available at all the schools, and we've talked about these in some of our other webinars. But these are really great hands-on courses that students can take to really get an idea if, you know, they may think they want to be a veterinarian, but then they take vet tech and maybe it's not what they thought it was. That's what these classes are intended to do. They're intended to give that student like a kind of a day in the life of in this industry and have them make that decision. You know, this is the time for them to explore. These are free courses, same with Saddleback courses. So it's good for them if they really have a strong idea of what they want to do, take one of these classes, get the training. You know, they're all A through G approved. A lot of these you can earn industry certifications when you're done if you're like a pathway completer. So there's a lot of bonuses for taking a CCA course. And then, like I mentioned before, community college courses are free for students. You know, I would suggest if it's maybe taking something over the summer, that's something fun that they might be interested in. You can earn college credits at the same time you're going to high school, gain early exposure to college level work so you can have a really good idea of what college classes look like and what the rigor is and what the expectations are. They also have so many options and opportunities in classes that maybe you and your student haven't even thought of taking. So there's a lot of interesting classes that you can take, again, in all different subjects. And there's a link on here too. when we send you guys the slides for the CCA courses, so you can see what's offered at all of the different high schools, in bell and after bell classes. Okay, we're almost at the end of the year. So you guys are here at our mock admissions case study. We do have another webinar coming up for college abroad and gap year. So we'll be sending that out as we get a little bit closer to May 15 from 5:30 to 6:30. And we hope you guys come back for the fall. We'll have a whole new list of webinar Wednesdays. And again, you guys will get these resources as well. But if you're looking for particular, just, some good data to look at for UC Freshman Admit per campus, you can get an idea with that link. Cal State Freshman Impaction Chart shows you which CSUs are impacted by which major as well. We have our Futureology resource locker, which has all of our YouTube channel stuff is there in there as well, which this will be recorded and put up there in like a day or two. CCA course schedule for fall 2024. And we also attach the Saddleback College class schedule for you. Okay, we really appreciate all of you being here. And if you wouldn't mind, I know you guys took a pre-survey. If you could also take the post-survey, again, this just helps us get a good idea for maybe future webinars, feedback. And it's also a time for questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and we will stick around for a couple minutes here to answer your questions.
So I'll answer one of the first questions on here. There was a question about how you can personalize each essay for the different schools. And I think you're referring to the Common App. So the Common application is an application that is utilized by hundreds of different out-of-state and private schools. And on the Common application, you write one personal statement, and that personal statement should not be college specific. So that is one statement that can be generally submitted to all of the colleges that you will be applying to utilizing the Common App. The way that may become personalized is that each of those colleges may have what's called supplemental essays that the student is required to write. And a lot of the colleges will ask us a question like, why us? Like, why are you applying to our school? Or what program would you like to study at our school? And that's the area, the supplemental essays is the perfect opportunity to be more personalized for that college that you are applying to. So I hope that answers your question. And maybe I know that there's questions right now coming in of who got in, what are the actual results? So we don't have the results because this is a mock case study. So this is a fake school. These are fake candidate profiles. And really the point of the mock case study tonight was to show you what a holistic admissions process looks like. And like our polls showed, and it indicates everybody had different opinions, right, about who they would admit and who they thought were strong candidates. Maybe some of you thought all three were strong candidates. We absolutely thought so as well. So that kind of highlights the hard part about the college admissions process and how the holistic process can be a bit subjective, right? So there are different indicators that, of course, we will take into consideration, and the admissions officers will place, different weights on, like our slide showed in the beginning. There were, 70%, more than 70% of the admissions officers said for their school, academics and rigor were really, really important, right? And so this perfectly demonstrates our point today, that this process is subjective. And we don't have any answers here for, who was or wasn't admitted. But also to kind of share, sometimes colleges have what's called committee-based admissions. So that means that literally sometimes there's it's a room of admissions officers who are reading through an application, and they literally vote just like we did tonight and said who wants to admit the student, who says deny. And then in that case, you know, the majority of the votes and what their discussions are will, you know, the decision will follow from that committee discussion. So that's kind of what we did tonight. Hopefully it was insightful for you and helpful to know how some of these admissions decisions are made from the other side.
So I'll take a moment. I'll answer a couple of questions I see in the chat. Somebody mentioned they might want to do business as a major when they apply to college, but they're thinking about starting a business now that's not necessarily related to their future business. It's not really necessarily a big deal if you do something now that's 100% related. If it's loosely related and it develops skills that are going to help you with your future major, your future career, that's what they look for. So the example of the question, starting a business, maybe a car wash business, but you don't want to operate a car wash as an adult, that's okay. But the skills of like building a client base, managing money, all of those things are going to be useful. And so the colleges will see that through your essays or through your resume. So things that are related, it doesn't have to be 100% identical to what your career is. Because, for example, high school students don't have access to maybe work in a hospital as easily as a college student. So like, that's not going to be a detriment to a student if they want to apply for a medical related career or things like that. So anything that a student does is valuable. Let's see what else. And I put in the chat the link to our Futureology website, just so if anybody does want to ever schedule an appointment with one of your counselors at your high school site, you have access to our email as well. But students can stop in the Career Center pretty much anytime and set up an appointment in the future. So we're always available. And all of this material will be sent out in the next day or so with the recording as well as the applicant material. So that way, if you have more questions, you can let us know.
There was a question, so why would these not be Stanford or Ivy League students? Yeah, I mean, who's to say they're not? We don't know, right? It just depending on what Stanford's looking at, that coming admissions cycle. Ivy Leagues are highly competitive. So, you're going to really have to take advantage of the APs and honors courses and extracurriculars, et cetera. So we're not saying that these aren't Ivy League students per se. Everyone, has a shot as far as like, building their profile, starting as a freshman, taking those rigorous courses, involved in activities and things like that. So hope that clarifies that.
And one thing I wanted to mention, just to make sure, if you do have any future questions, feel free to reach out to us or have your students stop in the Career Center. This process definitely has a lot of different aspects to it. And so like the UCs, the Cal State system, Common App private schools, they are very diverse. This was kind of a covering of all of them kind of in one little activity. But for example, if your student is wanting to apply to one certain system, that's where we want to talk and have those conversations to set you up for success. So, but each college looks at things differently. Some value grades a little bit more, some value activities. So that's why we're here to help guide you that process. But this was hopefully just to get the conversation started so that way you feel confident when you go into the application season in the future.
There was a question about like an internship. They're actually respected free. Yeah. Okay. You say if you have the list you set, yeah, we're continuing to add to that. It's a live Google sheet. So when we get information about different internships that are available, we do post those. And or, different summer programs, just overall summer enrichment opportunities. We're continuing to add to that. And if you're not sure where that is for anyone else attending, it is on the Futureology website. We do have a tab for summer enrichment programs. We do try to highlight the ones that are free of cost as well.
And many times, even if they're not free of cost, you can apply for waivers. So you can look into each individual one that you're interested in and apply for scholarships or waivers for those fees as well.
If you have any more questions, go ahead and put those in the chat or the Q&A. We'd love to answer any last minute questions. We're glad you all joined us tonight and helped us make a decision. It's a tough one. And here's our email. This is our team email, so you can email us as a team, or on the link that I sent in the chat, it has each of our individual emails for each counselor. So there's one question about the ACT and SAT, and I know somebody's answering it, but I'm sure the rest of the group would love to hear. That is a topic that definitely is changing SAT and ACT requirements for admissions. It varies by campus. So as an overview right now, the UCs and the Cal States do not require it. But if your student is considering any out-of-state or private schools, they may require it, or it may be optional. So there are some resources that we can share with you to look at the policies. If it's required, obviously a student will need to take it. If it's optional, we want to see how a student is doing academically and how comfortable they feel taking that test and putting in the effort to study, add that to their plate. One thing to remember is some schools use the SAT or ACT score as part of their financial aid award. So if you have a higher score, they could offer you more money. So, but it does vary per campus.
Yeah, and I also included a website on there. It's called fairtest.org. And so that will show a running list of all the schools that remain test optional or test free. And what we've heard so far for the following year is that some of the highly selective colleges will require test scores. There's also a question here for demonstrated interest. So some colleges will consider how interested the student is in their college and the different ways that they have demonstrated or shown and expressed the interest in that college. So in our applications today, we highlighted the demonstrated interest through different ways. Like, for example, we had some of the students went to the college's booth at a college fair, or attended a high school visit, or maybe reached out to a college rep via email, or participated in an interview, or went on campus for an on-campus tour or preview program. So all of those things, they will ask for student information when you kind of do have those points of contact, and those are the ways that those schools will track demonstrated interest. But again, not all colleges do this. UCs, Cal States do not track demonstrated interest. It's only a handful of some private colleges.
All right, if there's any last minute questions, go ahead and leave those in the chat. Otherwise, we are super glad you joined us, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening. See if any last takers. If not, thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the future at other events or activities, or have your students stop by the Career Center on campus. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone.